In this video, we're going to go over 3 heroes to hard counter every single tank in Overwatch. We all know that tank diffs decide games in Overwatch 2, so learning how to shut down a tank from every single role is exactly what you need to climb and reach your all-time peak. But we're almost to 60,000 subscribers, so do me a huge solid and smash that subscribe button, and let's get into the video. Now, the first character we got to talk about is Diva, and this is probably the only tank not countered by Pharah Mercy. But for Diva in particular, there's a couple of characters that give her a lot of problems. First off is Brig, and Brig can be very annoying for several reasons. One, she can deny you space that you take. You go up to the high ground, you get whipped off, you try to make a play, you get whipped off. She just denies what you want to do, and that's not the only way she does. If you go for a target that's low, let's say it's an Ana that you think you can deny her nade, eat it, kill her with your micro missiles, all of a sudden that person gets a whole bunch of packs, and now you're just there, your DM's ended, and now you're gonna get bullied from a break from behind, and the Ana now able to actually shoot you, and you can't protect yourself. Not to mention, you can never really beat her in a direct one-on-one, which is not really one you're gonna want to take anyways, but it is just another target that you can't go for. So she can deny your space, deny your targets, and you can't really kill her yourself. So yeah, she's a problem. Next off, we do got to talk about Echo. And while you can eat a lot of what Echo has to offer, her beam can get you demeched probably more than anything else in the game. You can't DM it, and you just kind of die out of nowhere unless you're getting actively healed up. And really, Echo just forces you to play a lot more passive and reserved. Really disciplined, making sure that you never get yourself caught out at low HP, because the Echo will just swoop in and just get you demeched out of nowhere, and that's pretty frustrating. It also doesn't help that you're a pretty good copy for Echo as well. Now, last up is Zarya, and this one's a little bit tricky because if you don't engage the Zarya on her terms, you're actually fine on Diva. But if you're a Zarya player against a Diva on any map that doesn't have a lot of verticality, you can make it so the Diva is pretty ineffective. Not only can you just walk into her or ignore her, put her in a situation where she needs to peel, but she can't because she can't just put herself in between you and her team. You can get a lot of charge off of her micro missiles. You can bail your team out with your team bubbles, and really, as long as you're not getting your gravitons eaten, you're gonna have a huge advantage on any low ground map that doesn't have a ton of high ground if you're playing Zarya. Now, the next tank that we gotta talk about is Doomfist. And as a Doomfist main myself, Doom doesn't really have a crazy amount of problems with tanks. He's more concerned about support utility and one DPS in particular, the one DPS being Sombra, which can make your life a living hell. The thing about a Sombra is if she plays passive and she just waits for you to engage and then you get hacked, that denies your disengage and you die. Doom is all about that timing and that mobility. If that gets interrupted in any way, you could just die because of it. Now, in addition to that, there's actually supports that are all problematic in their own ways: Kiriko, Ana, and Brig. So Kiriko can be problematic if you get a power punch. As a Kiriko, you can just wait for the Doomfist to go in and Suzu his power punch, and he spent all that time in cycles getting power punch, and then he goes in for one that he expects to be huge, and you just Suzu it all, you don't give him shields, and he just dies. So that's really, really strong against Doomfist. Ana, if he power blocks and he's not disciplined at baiting out your sleep, just sleeping him is just fantastic. Wait for the power block, sleep him. Now, if you're not hitting reliable sleeps when he's coming in, you're not as good of a counter against Doomfist, and I would say it's a little bit more on the skill side, but if you're an Ana that can hit semi-consistent sleep darts, you can make a Doomfist's life a living hell. And then Brig, you can counterpin a Doom, which is really strong, and the fact that all you have to do is just wait for him to engage, counterpin him on the ground, that's almost always going to favor you because Doomfist is going towards your team, into your backline. Putting you both on the ground is going to heavily favor your team if it's on your type of controlled space. As long as you're not into the enemy team's side or the enemy team's controlled space, you won't die. So yeah, Brig is actually pretty good in that regard. Now, we do got to talk about Junker Queen, the new hotness right now. How do you shut this character down? I'm going to give you some tips from a couple of different characters. First off is Mei. Mei is really, really great at dealing with Junker Queen. Isolate her from her supports. Make it so, especially when she's not using her cooldown, so she doesn't have them, and she's trying to back up to run away, that's when you want to hit that wall. You can also just use a wall to deny not only her ultimate, but sometimes just trading a wall for her shout. She's shouting. She's obviously going to try to go in really aggressively here, just wall her off, trade it off. You don't have to get some crazy value. You don't have to always kill her. Just denying a Junker Queen with one ability is actually a really, really great trade for you. In addition to that, if the Junker Queen's trying to run away, just constantly trying to freeze her and slow her down is just going to be good. It's going to allow your team to potentially follow up on her. And of course, you will never be the target of cleave as long as you save your ice block. So with all these things combined, plus the fact that if she doesn't have her shout, she can't get out of your blizzard, May just completely shuts down a queen. And just be disciplined with your abilities and think about how you could trade yours for her engages. Next up, we do got to talk about Zen, and Junker Queen, her biggest weakness is that she's rather squishy if she's not actually getting swings off, and Zen makes her even squishier. Discord to the head, constant volleys, and just keeping your range, making sure that you're really, really careful about not getting knifed. If you get knifed at all with her throwing knife, you will die on Zen, but if you play your corners, you play your cover, you play far away, and you just keep this freaking Queen Discord 24/7, I promise you that it's going to be way easier to shut her down. She's not going to be able to be aggressive, and the longer that you live, the longer you keep her in check, the less and less she's going to do, and the more and more you're going to win these games. Last up, I will say that Widowmaker is actually pretty good against Queen, mainly because Queen just can't do anything to you. She can't interact in any meaningful way unless you're too close to her, so just keep your really, really max range, and don't be afraid to go for headshots on Queen. Like I said, she's squishy. She definitely doesn't want to take random chunks of huge amounts of burst randomly in the middle of the fight, so look for that. Look for moments to punish her and just keep your distance. And yeah, this character isn't going to be able to pivot very easily to punish you if you're on a far off angle, so whether you're killing her team or shooting at her, Widow is a pretty good pick. Next off, we do got to talk about Orisa, and for Orisa, there's a couple of characters that are really good against her. Number one, Zarya is just fantastic. You can ignore everything that Orisa does with your bubbles. You're going to get max charge so quickly, and you can actually just shred on Orisa. If you have max charge and some bubbles, it doesn't even matter if she's getting pocketed. You can literally just shred her, and that's super freaking strong. Zarya is probably the best tank to go up against Orisa in the head-to-head, but when we talk about supports, there is only one that I can think of that is amazing against Orisa, and that's Zen. Similar to the Junker Queen problem, while Orisa does have a lot of things to protect herself, sure, you're going to force out her cooldown so much quicker, and you're going to be able to actually punish an Orisa that seems to be unkillable if you have Zen. You're going to be able to actually focus this character down. Now, the Zen thing is going to work better if you have some form of high damage, which is why I think another character that's really good against Orisa is actually Hanzo. Orisa has a really big head hitbox, can't really do anything to deny a Hanzo that's on an off angle or on the high ground, and if the Orisa is caught lacking, you can just keep nailing her in the head, and yeah, she's gonna die. She's actually gonna be killable. Of course, a lot of the time, the best way to counter Orisa is to literally ignore her, but if you don't want to take the ignoring route and you don't want to just fight her team and then kill her last, these are the characters that you would want to take a more direct approach at dealing with her. Then next up, we do got to talk about Ramattra, and Ramattra is a pretty flexible tank that doesn't have a lot of bad matchups, honestly. The character is pretty medium across the board, and I think that these are his 3 worst matchups by far. Number 1 is actually Doomfist. Any Ramattra player knows up against a good Doomfist, you just can't control your engagements. You pop your nemesis and want to run in, you get punched back. You're blocking, you get punched. You can never trap the Doom, nor can you kill him. He's just a very annoying target for you. Although, you can still play Ramattra into him, assuming that you have some of the other problematic Doom characters on your team that fill out your roster. Ramattra is pretty good at being flexible, so that's kind of one of his strongest strengths. But another character that's really good against Ramattra is actually Ana. While Ana enables Ramattra a lot, sleeping a Ramattra when he comes in is one of the only ways to shut him down. You shut down his ultimate, you deny him. When he blocks, you can sleep him and nade him. It's actually really, really strong, and Ana can shut him down, but you got to make sure that you're not missing any of your abilities. They should be rather simple to hit. Just take your time, focus on hitting them, 100% execution, instead of trying to just like get it out fast. You know, we're not trying to go for speed here. We're trying to go for 100% consistency. Slow down, max out that consistency. You can speed up as you're confident that you're going to hit it. Next up, we do got to talk about Mei. Mei is kind of just really good with a lot of these brawl-esque tanks. I know Ramattra is a little bit of a hybrid, but specifically being able to wall off Ramattra's ult, wall off Nemesis form, that's really, really strong and a really, really great way to either punish Ramattra trying to run away or deny Ramattra from pushing in a similar way that we denied Junker Queen with wall when she's using her abilities. Any character that has to use abilities to enter the fight is going to be great if Mei can deny it with Wall. Wall doesn't have to be this amazing thing. Trading it for an ability, that's actually amazing enough. And next up, we do got to talk about Reinhardt. And one of the most annoying characters for Reinhardt, period, is Kiriko. Because not only can you just not interact with her very well, but she can also just Suzu your shatters, which is super annoying. If you're going to shatter, you really want to get Kiriko in it. And against good Kirikos, they will literally respond to your shatter with a self-Suzu. So that's just really annoying as well. It's almost like you want to just overly pressure her, make her distracted, make it so you know she used Suzu. And yeah, it could be just a very difficult time. If you want to counter a Reinhardt in another way, same thing with Ramattra and Junker Queen. Mei is just really, really good. Especially if you have another Brawl character that can follow up with your wall. So if you have like a Reaper, or if you have a Cass, or if you have another Rein or anything, that character can follow up on a Rein that's walled, so you can actually punish him. And make sure that if a Rein is full HP, full shield, you're not just throwing up wall, because it's just going to get broke and it's not going to get any value. It's better to be a little bit more conservative around the wall and look for opportunities where the opponents don't have the resources to survive being walled. Next up is Ramattra. Ramattra is actually a really good tank against Rein. Not only can you just bash him through his shield, Rein can't really stop you very easily just pushing past him. While Ramattra definitely does have to play around shatter, overall, I do think that Ramattra is pretty favored in the matchup. Now we do got to talk about Roadhog, and realistically, everything counters Roadhog because he's not very good right now, but I'm only going to give you one character. Everyone knows it. It's Ana. Ana just makes Roadhog have, you know, his own personal hell. Getting antied, he can't breathe. Getting slept, he can get killed very easily. Roadhog is pretty countered by Ana, and I think that if you're ever in a game for some reason where a Roadhog is running wild, get an Ana right away, and yeah, you're going to be just fine. Now, next up, we do got to talk about Sigma. Sigma is a character that's strange because I don't necessarily think that there's characters that directly counter Sigma in the traditional sense. He's more map oriented because here's the thing about Sigma. He wants to keep his distance, and whether or not he can always is gonna be how strong he is. As an example, in the Rein v Sigma matchup, Sigma, as long as he can keep his own effective range, keep his own distance, he's favored. But if that Rein gets close to him, then he's not favored. Now, on some maps, it's going to be really, really hard for that Rein to get close, right? Circuit Royale, Junker Town, these maps are going to be very hard. But on other maps, like Queen Street, a lot of the Brawl maps, like King's Row, all of a sudden, Sigma is being countered by these Brawl characters. So it's really dependent on the map. And that's why I'll say that whether or not you can counter Sigma easily is going to depend on the map. Now, if you're playing up against a Sigma, on the maps where he's strong, these long distance maps, Sigma's dominant. How do you counter a Sigma? Realistically, there's only a couple ways. One, you're trying to play a different game than the Sigma. So you're avoiding him with the dive composition. You're jumping the back line. You're trying to get kills that way and just kind of play keep away from the Sigma. Or two, you're trying to get value up against the Sigma by playing a mirror composition, but just doing it a bit better, right? Long distance spam, long distance pick potential, Widow, Hanzo, Zen. So basically, on the maps that Sigma's good in, most of the time it's going to be better to play into the same game and play style as Sigma, but do it better rather than trying to go against the grain and play something like Brawl out of nowhere on a map where you're not going to get the value out of it. The next up, we got to talk about Winston. The first character we got to talk about, of course, is Reaper. Reaper's really good against Winston, although doesn't counter him as hard as you might think. Reaper doesn't really want to stay super passive all the time and kind of just exist in your team and just be anti-dive 24/7. But what the great thing about Reaper and the great thing up against Winston is if you go proactive and you jump onto their supports, up against most other tanks, they'll come peel for you, right? Most tanks will come back and deny you. Diva will come back and deny you. Junker Queen will come back and deny you. All these characters will come back and deny you. If Winston tries to come back and deny you, you just kill him. So that is one of the advantages to Reaper up against Winston. You're not necessarily going to just want to play passive the entire game unless the Winston is literally just feeding into you. But the fact that you deny the Winston for being able to help his team is really, really strong. Next up, we do got to talk about Diva. Diva's actually really good against Winston. You could break his bubble. You can boop him. If he jumps up, you can actually boop him off the high ground. In addition to that, you can push through his bubble and just shred him. You can't really deny his damage, but you can really beat him up in the 1v1, and that's really, really strong. He's also not really that good at peeling you either. So for all these reasons, Diva is actually fairly good in this matchup. And then last up is Zen. And you might be like, isn't Zen a dive target? And he is, but one of the things that Winstons aren't prepared for is the amount of damage they will take if they get discorded mid-jump. They will just get shredded. And yes, in a coordinated dive, with the Winston and a Genji and a Tracer, you're going to be targeted and killed a lot as Zen. But that's 3 characters. We're not talking about how to counter all of them. And of course, you could have teammates to help you stay alive as well, but up against the solo Winston that's popping off, Zen is really great, and then you can adapt as you need depending on what else they have. Now, next up, we do got to talk about Wrecking Ball, and Wrecking Ball has some really great counters. One is Sombra. Sombra, everyone knows it's the same thing with Doom. It's just like Wrecking Ball goes in, he gets hacked, he can't do anything, and then he can potentially get killed. Really great counter to Wrecking Ball, although as a Sombra player, you just got to make sure that you're not actually standing around and waiting for this Wrecking Ball too much and your uptime is way too low. That could be a problem. Remember, you're not really farming EMP very fast off of a tank, so you got to find the healthy balance between denying the Wrecking Ball and still going and doing other things. Next off, we got to talk about Mei. Mei is just great. You can get slowed, you can get walled. You're never going to be able to kill the Mei as Wrecking Ball, so Mei is just a really good pick. It seems like Mei is just really good against a lot of tanks. Spoiler alert, Mei, Pharah, Mercy, and Zen are kind of amazing against the majority of the tanks. And then last up, we do got to talk about Orisa, a character that can't be bothered by Wrecking Ball, can't be booped by Wrecking Ball. Wrecking Ball can skewer you, and yeah, I think Orisa alone isn't going to be enough, but if you combine Orisa with some high damage like Zen and Cassidy, all of a sudden Wrecking Balls literally have to play super passive where they could just die out of nowhere. But last but certainly not least, we do got to talk about Zarya, and Dive is fairly good against Zarya. So Winston being able to ignore the Zarya, and the Zarya can't really stop what you're doing very well, that's really strong. Tracer is phenomenal against the Zarya because Tracer can force you to use cooldowns. If you're standing somewhere behind, think about being on Tracer behind the shoulder of a Zarya. If a Zarya is facing forward, be behind their right shoulder, behind their left shoulder, behind a little piece of cover, and just poking the Zarya from behind. A little bit of damage here, a little bit of damage here. The Zarya is going to bubble and not be able to do anything with it. You can bait out these bubbles really easily, bait them out and not bait them out and give her any charge. You just get to bait them out, and Tracer just gets to be super annoying to a Zarya where she's wasting all of her bubbles, constantly getting pressured, and then all of a sudden the Zarya is not bubbling your little bit of pressure. Then you blink in, you go for a huge amount of damage, and you maybe kill her out of nowhere with your team's damage. And it's really a hard balance on Zarya to play around a really good Tracer. And I do think that Tracer is actually good at doing this against a lot of tanks, but it's kind of more of a skill thing with most of these tanks, where in the Zarya matchup, I don't even really think you need to be that skillful on Tracer. You just need to live sitting at an annoying angle and constantly shoot at her. So yeah. Next off is, surprise, Zen. Zen is like a really good one because you can trade Discord oftentimes for bubbles. Zarya's, if they're walking through open space with a Discord on her, she's going to bubble to cleanse it, but guess what you have to do? Put it right back on her. So it's not really a cost for you, but it's a cost for her, and you keep your distance way far away from Zarya where she can't do anything to you, and you counter her grab with your trance. So yeah, it's just kind of a lot all combined to make Zen really great against Zarya, putting a lot of pressure on her. And just like with every tank, mainly besides Diva, Pharah Mercy is very annoying for Zarya to deal with. You basically just can't do anything and you just lose. So yeah, that's definitely a very powerful combo. But anyways, these are the characters that will hard counter every single tank in Overwatch. But thank you so much for coming by. Please give me to 60,000 subscribers if you like the content, and press that subscribe, and I'll see you next time.